All right. Well, welcome back. We are at the COVID-19 Market Awareness Update. We started this broadcast early March when all of this came into our world and created this new norm, this new world. And we are broadcasting on money, economics, what do you do? We've had credit repair, how do you do loans, how do you do payroll loans, how does this whole thing work out? And I think everyone's really making it up. So this week, though, has been just a very special and extraordinary week, especially today. I have Barry Habib on with me. And those of you who don't know him, I'm going to introduce him more properly in a moment. I want to wait till we are live on Facebook. Those of you who are on the Zoom, go ahead and open up your chat. You will be wanting to put in any chats and any questions. We'll be reading them up. Also, we are live on Instagram. So those of you who do have questions, you already know, because a lot of you have been really preempted that this interview was going to go on. So, and with this live broadcast. So while you have Barry live, start asking any questions. And I don't know, Barry, if you have yours up. We have people coming in from Florida, California, Ohio. We have folks from Spain, the Caribbean, the golf course, of course. John is our Houstonian who always comes from the golf course. I don't think he does anything else but golfs. Marlon, super fan of yours from Iowa. Kent from Colorado. And questions start coming in. Dallas, Texas. So I think, Steve, are we live on Facebook? Doesn't look like we quite are yet.
I need 30 more seconds.
All right, that's fine. So say where you are from, and if you have questions for myself or for our Barry, put them in. It's interesting, the golf courses. We have several friends that run golf courses out here in Northern Nevada, how busy they are and how they've gotten really creative about making sure that you have booze and food. So, I wish the ski hill would be open, but the ski resorts wouldn't make as much money. But I'll tell you, it's God's irony. We've had more snow in the last week, and the only way to ski is you got to hike up with some with skins, or you have to snowmobile up. All right, we have more people joining from Indiana, again, more in California, Canada, tons of Canadians, Manhattan Beach. And I don't know if we have a little Facebook issue out there, Steve-O.
I'm trying to connect. I had to log out and log back in. So it's preparing the stream now. All
right, we're gonna roll. So Barry Beep, thank you for being on. It is a pleasure and honor to have you and do this interview with you. It was been interesting to watch, like right now, of any time have you ever been so in demand, your opinion and your voice, than it is right now?
It's been kind of really rewarding and nice. So first of all, thanks for having me on, Laurel. Appreciate you and all the great things that you do. And I was really looking forward to spending some time with you and doing this together. But yeah, it is a really fast moving and changing time. We went through some difficult times back during the housing crisis that we had about 12 years ago. So this is different because there are some different concerns, some different fears, some different moving parts, and really never has the medical side of things been more important to the economic side of things than we are right now, at least from my lifetime.
Yeah, right. Those of you who are live now on Facebook and Instagram, I want to just bring to light a little more about who you are, Barry. So he's all over the web if you don't know who he is. Leading American entrepreneur. I didn't realize how diverse you were, so we'll get into some of that conversation. But you're really known in the mortgage industry, founder and CEO of MBS Highway. You have Crystal Ball Awards from Zillow and look behind you. And so talk about your Crystal Ball Awards. I mean, your creds are enormous. You're a movie producer and owner. Look how much fun stuff you do. So we're going to get into all of that, but talk about the Crystal Ball Awards. I want to really bring the accuracy of your knowledge, your reporting, and your insight to folks.
So I've been very blessed. There's about 150 of the country's top economists, and although I'm really technically not an economist, that produce forecasts for real estate, and I've been fortunate enough that on 2 occasions recently, The 2 out of the last 3 years, I was the nation's top, as far as accuracy goes, real estate forecast, which incorporates a lot of local data from different parts of the country. So we've been able to take a look at things and look at different metrics and been able to extrapolate where we think things are going. And we have been fortunate to be very accurate. And I think that as we are discussing today's environment, and obviously it's going to cause some pain for the real estate market, Laurel, I think that that pain is short term. And, sometimes when you have situations like this, like a crisis or like a difficult time, there are opportunities. And one of those, and we can talk more about those, one of those is real estate right now. So whenever you're ready for that discussion, we can certainly go into it. But I think that people watching should begin to think about not just where we are, but where we're going to be. And how can we look ahead and see what things look like and understand that there's opportunities that are developing today that we can capitalize for to really be in a much better position going forward.
Well, let's dive in, because we got a lot of sectors to go after. Let's stay with the real estate. So when you won those awards, what were the predictions? I mean, what did you just absolutely nail to be number one?
Well, where prices would go quarter by quarter, year by year, for both short and long term. And you look at a lot of things. You look at things like demographics. So one of the strengths that we have in the housing market, and let's take a step back for a second, Laurel. So back maybe a little over a month ago, when Corona was a beer, right? Or a lovely place in California, that's what it was known for. But when we take a look at that world and that environment, real estate was really so strong, and pretty much every metrics. And we look at a lot of things. We look at very detailed things like, what is the price of a home compared to the replacement cost, which is 1.59 times, and the 40-year average is about 1.58. When we got into trouble, it was over 2 times. So we were good. When you take a look at the price of a home compared to renting, it was about 17 times. The 40-year average about 16.5. When we got in trouble, it was somewhere in the neighborhood of 24 times. So all the metrics were good, but the big one, and affordability getting better, rates are going to remain low. So it's like a dream situation for housing, but the big one is there's just a shortage of inventory. And inventory was at a 40-year low. There was only 1.7 million units out there. And that's half of what it was during the financial crisis that we had. And by the way, our population's grown. So one more thing that we have to look at to look forward, and it's one of the metrics that's very important to us, and that is households being formed. So a household being formed is somebody leaves mommy and daddy, and now they got their own mailing address. They've got their own place. It could be a rental, or it could be an ownership. Now, that's driven by birth rates from the mid to late 80s. And what's interesting, Laurel, if you take a look at that chart, and you take a look at 85, 86, 87, 88, 89, 90, the rates of births were increasing like a staircase every year. Now, the result is you're going to see those people come to, you can't reverse the clock. They're coming, right? So they are going to be coming in larger numbers every year and wanting to get out of mom and dad's place and get their own place. Yeah. And we simply don't have builders putting up enough homes to keep up with that demand. That's one of the reasons why home values will be supported higher. Now, in the short run, Laurel, of course, jobs is a big concern, and we have a lot of uncertainty. But as we begin to talk about some of the medical things that are out there, there is a lot of hope. And I think that if we were to say, okay, this is a bridge we have to cross. This is not going to be necessarily a fundamental shift. And things will come back. They might be different. They will be different in some aspects. But people are still going to need a home. And you can argue that, man, was there ever a better reason to get out of a crowded apartment and move to the suburbs? So we see suburban demand skyrocketing. And we think that if you were to think about the way things were just a month ago, it was frustrating as a buyer. You were getting outbid. There was 3 bids on the home. I got to come up. Forget about asking the seller for anything, because they're not going to give it to you because they got people knocking on their door. So what we will see for a period of time, there will be a window where you can get a home at a discount, where you can get a home with terms that you want without being frustrated, without being outbid. Now, of course, I'm not being insensitive here. To the extent that you can, right, this will probably be viewed as a really good opportunity. Let's remember that people live in a home on average, according to the National Association of Realtors, for 10 years. Man, if you're going to look back 10 years from now and buying during this period of time at a discount, you'll say that was a great decision.
Yeah, the Corona house.
There you go.
And you talk about the demographics. There's going to be, in the next probably 9 to 10 months, a whole bunch of, what are they calling them? Coronials. right? The next generation of Coronials will be coming alive. So that'll be interesting. Two segments I want you to talk about with real estate, because I have a partner in the Kentucky, Ohio area. And I remember, a year ago, it was the merge, especially with the millennials, to move in. We were accommodating, still accommodating 1-1s, 2-1s. Millennials are living together, not getting married, but moving in towards the river, towards the bourbon bars, towards the coffee shops, that trend all moved in, which was great for the rental market. What are you seeing? Like you just said, that they'll be moving out to the burbs. Are you seeing that across the nation and more of? You think people are really going to just be moving? I could see a trend of like some of the renters leaving and going back out.
Well, you know what? It's such a great question. It's a really smart question. And here's the thing: is just people just changed a little bit through generations. If you take a look back, when we go back to like the 50s and 60s, the average age that someone was getting married was, believe it or not, 20 to 21, and they were having kids by 22. Now, today, the median age of somebody getting married is 29.8 years. Let's call it 30 years old to get married. And then many cases after that, they have kids. And having children is the #1 reason for home ownership. Let's take millennials that are between ages 30 and 39. By the way, next year, millennials are going to start turning 40. So Laurel, they're catching up to us finally, right? So
that's true.
So millennials will be.
So I just want to answer that though. So how young are the millennials? Are the millennials really 20? I got a 20-year-old son, which would be
20-year-old is going. That's going to be a Gen Zer. Okay, so when you take a look at your millennials, that sweet spot's going to be ages 30 to 39. Let me give you an interesting statistic. A millennial ages 30 to 39 without children, their home ownership rate is 38%. One child brings the home ownership rate up to 80%. So if you have more than one child, it's 82%. So it's not having like a minivan full of kids. It's just that first child causes a millennial to want to finally become a homeowner. And we all know this, if we have kids, it changes everything. Yeah. So when you take a look at what millennials will be doing, they will be in demand for more homes. They just kind of waited a little bit longer. They perhaps wisely decided to get married a little bit later in life. And, there's a lot of factors that play into that too, Laurel, because life expectancy is longer as well now. So these are all going into the thought process of a millennial who is going to be in a position to cause a great deal of demand on home ownership.
Oh, interesting. So what are you seeing on the commercial side, outside we move away from just home ownership into the commercial real estate space?
The commercial real estate, you'd have to imagine, is going to be challenged because people will be doing things differently. It's not as easy to turn on a business. Businesses have been shuttered. And there is obviously some real pain that they're feeling. And you wonder how quickly some businesses will come back that were dependent on having crowds. You wonder if they're not going to be able to hire everyone. The reason why this is so intertwined with medical is because, listen, there's a lot of promise as far as a therapeutic treatment. Things that people hear like hydroxychloroquine and azithromycin combination, as well as some of these other drugs that can be beneficial as a treatment. We're going to get a reprieve here in that seasonality will cause the virus, like most viruses do, to greatly subside towards the end of this month and through September. But it probably will come back. Now, the real key would be to get a vaccine. The vaccine fixes this. The vaccine means, Laura, we're going to be back out there hugging each other, and we want to, as humans, do that. You see, when you think about history, and I like to always look at historical examples, measles, polio. This has happened to us before. It was kind of before us, really, when we had these issues. But people that can remember that will know that once vaccines came into play, everything started to get better. And it takes a little time, but everything will. And what I'm saying to everyone here is that there is reason to believe that there's new information that prior to the end of this year, we potentially could have a vaccine. And if people become inoculated, you'll have so much more confidence to sit next to somebody in a theater, on a plane, in a restaurant, at a bar, you name it. Yeah. You'll have that close contact with a haircutter with confidence. and these are things I think that will change where we are. Now, we might look at that and say, man, that's so far in the distance, but really it's not. 6 months, 9 months from now, it happens fast. It moves quickly. I know from now it feels like a long time, but when you look in the rearview mirror, 6 months and 9 months ago wasn't that long ago, right? So we'll get there and things will really begin to get better. Although some businesses on the commercial side, they will struggle to ramp up because it's not that easy to turn that business back on. And who knows, we might be doing things differently. We might be doing things better. Who knows?
Yeah. Well, and I think as people come back, you look at a lot of the businesses, Harry Dent was on Monday, and I have to agree that some of the businesses are like, they're going to take this time, especially, and I love your opinion on this too, the older baby boomers and the folks who are probably ready to sell or just lay it down, right? Because some of these companies aren't sellable, right? Their EBITDA is not there. I mean, they just did it for a lifestyle and now they're done. I think some of them are going to take a really long look at, do we really want to go back, right? And I don't know that some of those older businesses are going to come back, which is going to cause, rent, the effects of rent and commercial properties and things like that too.
The only thing is that many of those individuals, older baby boomers, have been through two huge financial meltdowns, both the dot-com bubble and the financial crisis. So their retirement plans, unfortunately, may not be where they would have wanted them to be. And this recent downturn in the stock market certainly has not been of help to them. So while they may want to do that, Laurel, I wonder if they're able to fully do that, simply because when you look at the statistics, there's just a lot of people in the baby boomer camp, nearly half of them, who don't have any, 47% of baby boomers do not have hardly anything saved for retirement. And,
47%.
47%. It's a crazy number. And here's another number that's staggering. Before this situation, before this hardship, do you realize that 32% of people who have a job, so they're working, 32% of them would have to borrow money if they had an unexpected expense of greater than $400. So this speaks to how fragile things are.
If 32%, if they had an expense of more than 400, would have to borrow it.
Correct.
Or use a credit card.
Correct. It is very fragile. And that's why things like this PPP, payroll payment assistance program, right? Yeah. Or what you see happening out there is designed to help to protect against the fragility of this economy. And this mandated shutdown of our economy is something that is really taking a tremendous toll. It's making it very challenging.
So before we head into, I want to go to mortgage, of course. Everybody, questions are coming up about that. But talk a little, I want to give some more credibility to your medical comments, because you, as we spoke yesterday, are in daily communication with clinics, NIH. So give a little more background to, why listen to, I mean, you're really on the front of most.
Well, I'm not a doctor, but I did play one in a movie. I did, called Barry Monday. I did play Dr. Habib in that movie. It's actually a pretty good movie. And I am blessed in that I have a lot of contacts that help to give me updates. These are not updates that I am telling you about. I'm simply regurgitating them from people that are like Mike Roizen, who is head of Cleveland Clinic and partners with Dr. Oz. And he's been very kind to come on with me and do these talks so we can get information out there. And there's a few things that we need to know. And one is the hope that's out there in some of these treatments, but also that there's probably 10 times more people that have COVID than is being reported, simply because they're either asymptomatic, mild symptoms, not tested. Remember, we only know who's been tested, right? And you probably hear anecdotally of all these people who've had it, but they couldn't get a test. It wasn't that easy. It's becoming easier. But the estimates are that 10 times the amount of people that have been reported with it have this disease. Yeah. And in a way that's bad, of course, but in a way it's good, because it was initially thought that the mortality rate was 3 to 4%. However, it is now believed that with this more recent data and outlook, that it's closer to 0.4, 0.5%. Comparing that with the flu, which is 0.15%, it's still much more serious, but nowhere near the level of severity that was initially thought. And there are a few things that Dr. Roizen wants me to make sure that I tell people when I get the chance to, is that it appears that you should be careful and always consult your physician, but ibuprofen is not a good thing to mix with if you believe you have COVID symptoms. And it's common to do so because it's one of the things that combats fever. But it has been anecdotally shown that there may be a connection in making symptoms much worse. Same thing with Tylenol. Now, you should consult your physician, but if you can take aspirin, it's probably the choice. According to Dr. Roizen, it is the choice of which way to treat this. And then there's the discussion on fever. You should discuss this with your doctor, but if you're less than 45 years old, you can let your fever run a little hot. But over 45, you run a different risk. And that is, many of us over that age, and I fall way into that category, you tend to have a little bit of plaque And those high fevers that cause chills can cause plaque break-off. And that's a nasty situation that can cause arrhythmias and cause you to be in a position where, that's where you get the heart attacks and the strokes and the memory. That's all the ugly stuff. I don't want to talk about it. Yeah. But please consult with your physician, because there are things I see on the internet, and it's very important that you have your physician talk with you about it. And also, we are hearing so much about hydroxychloroquine and azithromycin. It does have a lot of promise. I've seen some of those initial studies. They're like, wow, but they're small groups. So they're doing these studies now. And yes, you hear President Trump, who is saying that they stockpiled 29 million doses. So maybe there's some optimism there as well, obviously. But please be careful, because the interaction could have some things. It's recommended that because of something called your QT response, this rebooting of your heart, that you should have an EKG before you interact with those two drugs, just to make sure your heart can be safe. So a lot of this is just safety stuff. And you know what they used to do for the Spanish flu in 1918 is people used to inhale a lot of steam, and it seemed to help because that's the only treatment that they had. So it's believed that this can help too. Steam in the shower, just breathe that steam in. It's good for you if you can do it.
That's awesome. So I just wanted to give some credibility to that input, and so appreciate it. Let's go back to real estate, but the other side of it, mortgages. So what are you seeing in the mortgages, with the drop to, a 0%? I don't think people really understand. It's not zero. You're not going to get no interest.
Crazy, right?
Just throwing out the weird comments that we get.
Fed controls the Fed funds rate. That's an overnight lending rate. Think about it this way. If you were lending somebody money, Laurel, if you were going to be nice enough to lend me some money, and that rate, you could change it anytime you want from one day to the next, you'd be a little bit more aggressive potentially. Say, yeah, Barry, I could charge you 0 today. Tomorrow I could charge you 3%, right? Literally, you could do that. So you'd be a bit more flexible. But Laurel, if you were going to say, I'm going to give you that rate for 30 years, and I got to be tied to that, and I can't change it for 30 years, it's a bit of a different story. And people need to understand that the difference between mortgage rates and Fed funds rates is dramatic, and many times they move in opposite directions, because mortgage rates are more concerned about things like inflation, and there's other circumstances that control them. The Fed funds rate is what banks charge each other. Now, the Fed does try to sometimes help bring down mortgage rates, and they do that by buying mortgage-backed securities. That's what governs mortgage rates. And so the Fed was trying to lower rates in something they call quantitative easing. You've all heard about quantitative easing. So when the Fed brought rates down to 0, they've done this before, the Fed does not want to go negative on rates. Why wouldn't they do that like other companies? Because we've learned it destroys your banking system, because that's something we don't want to do. So the Fed wants to do something that equates that quantitatively equates a cut in rates, but it's not the same as a cut, hence the name quantitative easing, where they buy treasuries, they buy mortgage bonds. Except the Fed, in their desire to do good, they got a little crazy and they bought too much mortgage bonds. And what that did was that caused mortgage bond prices to soar, but it wasn't translating to lower rates because of capacity, and the mortgage industry couldn't handle it. Just like when you were going to buy your Apple AirPods, and you had to wait 2 months to get them. It's not like Apple was going to put them on sale. They had no capacity, so no incentive to drop price. It wasn't because mortgage companies were trying to be greedy. They just had to slow things down. But it did cause a side effect that the Fed was unaware of. And the way that a mortgage company protects itself, because when you lock in a mortgage, it's not as if some magical fairy comes over and sprinkles dust on it and it's locked in. That is merely a promise of the mortgage company to give you that interest rate. They only are able to secure that when you close the loan and it's sold. In the interim, that loan is floating. And if the rates in the market were to get worse, mortgage companies would have to foot that bill. The way they protect themselves is by hedging. And what they do is they find a mechanism that says, look, if rates go up rather, we can make money on that, which in a trade that we'll do gives us enough cash to pay to buy that rate down to the rate we promised you. If rates go down, mortgage companies would make more money on that by closing a rate with you at 4% when rates are improved. However, they're losing money because in that protective measure, kind of that insurance policy, that hedge, that would lose money. Well, the Fed caused them to be so much upside down and losing money that on paper it looked like they were going to be okay. However, the broker dealers said, wait a second, here's a margin call. You got to write us money for all these checks. And mortgage companies were saying, oh my God, we can't afford that because we're writing all this money for margin calls and we're not closing the loans yet because it takes time to close them. And that imbalance was going to almost cripple the mortgage industry. And that's where, fortunately, I wrote a letter and it got on TV about it and talked to a lot of people who were very influential. And I was able to get the Fed to understand, see this, and the Fed, to their credit, they responded 2 Mondays ago, bang, they stopped what they were doing. And since then, the mortgage market on that front's been stable, but there's a new enemy out there, and that is forbearance. So this forbearance does not mean forgiveness. It's not free money, and it really should only be for people who need it. But there's a lot of people gaming the system now. And by doing this, what you're seeing on TV is servicers are getting really hurt. And what this could do is this could cause a lot of damage, because if the servicers wind up going under, it's going to, if you think it takes a long time to get your mortgage now, imagine when it takes 6 months to get a mortgage. And think about if you have a lack of programs, what that does to the value of real estate. It will knock it down. And think about what's going to happen to interest rates. Fewer lenders, less capacity, interest rates go up. So Mark Calabria, who's head of the FHFA, could have fixed this so easily without a dollar of taxpayer money. All he had to do is say, you know, as far as forbearance goes, this is a good thing to help people who lost their job, who's been affected in a bad way. But he didn't say that. He said, anybody can do it.
So speak to
crazy.
Speak to that a little further for those that are out there, because I do think it's a total opportunity for a lot of folks. I mean, and a lot of our clients are landlords, and I mean, from just across the board, people are just not paying. And what I see, and again, I'd love your advice, is at least if you are getting some relief, make sure you have things in writing. You just don't do a phone call and say, I'm not going to pay, or I'm skipping a month, and it's not free. Like, help, like.
It's not forgiveness.
It's not forgiveness.
You're right, Laurel. It's not forgiveness. You do have to pay it back, and you potentially could hurt yourself from getting a mortgage in the future, because people will see that you went into forbearance. There are lenders who have already said, we're not going to touch that person who's gone into forbearance. So you could be harming yourself. Again, if you need it because you've lost your job, then that's what it's designed for. But it's not designed, if you've got money in the bank, if you've got a job, if you're working, to try and game the system, because you're just, first of all, morally, that's bad juju to do that, okay? And number one, don't do that. And number two, you're hurting yourself. You could potentially hurt your credit. You could potentially hurt your opportunity to get a mortgage, and you got to pay it back. You have to pay it back. So when the forbearance period's over, that lender's going to say, pay it back, or they'll work out a payment plan for you. And then, by the way, you're not amortizing your loan at the same time. So if you're not amortizing your loan, that's a problem, because if you were, you'd be paying down that loan at a more accelerated pace. You wind up really having a pretty significant cost that people don't realize. So this is not for free, and it's really not designed for you if you don't need it. Don't try and game the system, because you'll truly hurt yourself, and you'll hurt those that at this point in time really need it. I mean, God forbid, if you were in that position, and imagine you were on a line to get a meal that you really needed because you were starved, and then somebody who's eating filet mignon and lobster gets in that line in front of you and makes you wait to get your meal. That's what you're doing if you're claiming forbearance when you really don't need it.
Yeah. So I'm going to go through some questions. Kent from Colorado wants to know, you've kind of addressed it, but I'll just go through the questions. Do you see a little downturn in the rates?
I think rates will be low for a long time. They will, now the Fed is keeping them steady, but once the Fed steps out of the market, it's only natural to think that they might move up just a little bit, but there are too many other pressures. And I think that you will see an opportunity for rates to be very low for a long time. But don't just think about rate. If you're thinking about refinancing, don't be short-sighted and think, oh, I could save $150 or $200 a month. That's not what it's all about. Use the equity in your home, and technically, currently, when you take a look at the levels of equity that people have, first of all, 40% of people own their home free and clear. That's great. And those who have a mortgage, the average loan to value is 53%, which means that people's value of the home, 53% of it is a mortgage and the rest is equity. That's huge. What you can do is you could pull equity out of your home, wipe out all your debts, take the balance, maybe take some extra cash, put it as a safety cushion. But then what you should be able to do is take the savings that you have, keep your overall payment the same, take the savings, and instead of pocketing and blow it, accelerate the payments on that mortgage. You'll wind up doing some amazing things for your life and for your family. You'll pay off the mortgage so much sooner. What we're seeing every day is somebody who has maybe 27 years left on their mortgage. Instead of just trying to save a few bucks, use this strategy. They'll pay off their mortgage in 13, 14 years instead of 27. So you save 14 years worth of payments. How's that going to feel? Don't change anything in your monthly amount from what you're paying now. And you're building equity every year. So 5 years later, you might have an extra 70,000. 10 years later, an extra 160,000. 300,000, 14 years later when the mortgage is paid. And there's your help for retirement. There's your kids' college education. And there's $3,000 a month that you don't have to pay. So think about this on a much wider, more holistic scale. And that's what you should be focused. The $200 a month you're saving, it's great, but let's face it, you're going to blow 200. I mean, how far does that go? Okay. That's just kind of nice. But if you do it right, it's life-changing.
So 2 questions is, there's a lot of folks that do have that large equity and are seeing huge opportunities. They're seeing it in the market. They're seeing it still in private lending amounts, real estate opportunities, business falling out. What's your advice or guidance? I mean, and as for the people who actually have it, pay large equities, do they take it and put it and diversify into other asset classes? And I say yes, I'll just answer why. I say yes with the caveat is if you know what you're doing, you have a team around you that is really smart, because to do it like sheep and just follow, it would be really risky if you don't know what you're doing. Or how would you answer?
I think you're 100% correct. I think that you framed it perfectly, is that you need to make sure that you're getting correct guidance. And what you want to do is you want to be careful with that equity in your home. And if you'd like to pull some money out to take advantage of some of the opportunities that can be great, be careful. Let's not be, too risky about it. But there could be opportunities in real estate right now that I believe will be very beneficial. There are other opportunities in the equity market that I believe can be very beneficial because things have gone on sale. It's so funny. It's like you wait Thanksgiving, wait till the clock turns really late at night and then the stores open up for those Black Friday sales. Well, right now there's a lot of things on sale and yet people are a little hesitant. This is a good time to look at it. Don't buy it when it's expensive. As it comes down, there could be some opportunities. And again, talk to someone who is trustworthy and knowledgeable in your life, in your world, that can help you make these decisions before you decide to take money out of your home.
Yeah. And then a question that came in actually earlier from another client group call that I had is, how do you decide? I mean, you've already talked about HELOCs and how to use that, but how do you decide, besides that little payment, to refi? Are there tools? Are there calculators? Like what tools? I mean, you have a million calculators and tools and things out here. How do you help somebody decide versus there are mortgage lenders, and I've heard from them and about them, just wanting to grab the fees really quick and refi damn near anything they get their hands on. So how does someone make a smart decision of whether it's really right for them or not? Is there tools that you can guide them?
Yes, that's one of the things we are very, very specific on, and we can really help. So if you're dealing with a mortgage professional, ask them if they have the tools within MBS Highway. That's what we have, and you'll see what we could put out there for you. It is really eye-opening. And it isn't the rate, it isn't the amount, it's the structure is everything. Again, it's one thing to save $100 or $200 a month. That's kind of nice, but you probably won't realize where it went. Let's face it. I mean, $200 a month, what you're talking about, $40 a week, $43 a week. When you break it down daily, it becomes kind of ridiculous, $5 or $6 a day. I mean, could you really benefit from $5 or $6 a day? That's not life-changing, but $300,000 is. Saving $3,000 a month for 13 years, that's life-changing. So when you approach this, please think about it on a grander scale. And the tools that we offer mortgage professionals that can access this can show this to you and illustrate this to you so easily and beautifully that you will be able to see and get the right strategy. So rates, something you want a low rate, but much more important than rate is the right strategy when you're dealing with a mortgage. A mortgage is it's not a commodity. It's not like, going over and buying a TV, a flat screen TV. The design has to be specific for your needs, comfort, and goals, whether it's kids' college, whether it's your retirement, whether it's I want to save for something or I'm going to move. So don't ever think of your mortgage as one at a time. Mortgages should be contemplated 2 at a time. How does this get me to this point in my life? And then what am I going to do from that point in my life? And a real expert can give you that. A real good mortgage advisor can give you that.
Yeah. And what we're going to do for those of you, we have a Facebook group, Barry, it's called Millionaires in Training, and it's growing and growing. So some of the tools that you have, I'd love to offer them inside of our group. So those of you that go to our Millionaires in Training group and join that with other resources that we've had available will be there. A few other questions we've talked about. What do you think is going to happen with the tax rate?
Tax rates?
Like some of the, I'm going to say financial advisors are telling people, which I think all this is so situational. I don't like bulk questions. Do you take your 401k and while the interest rates are where they are, or I'm sorry, tax rates where they are, do you convert to a Roth?
I hate Roth IRAs.
What?
I think this is just one person's humble opinion, but I've taken a really good look at this for a really long time, and almost every single person who has taken a Roth is sorry that they did, because
Really?
everyone's conventional wisdom has been, oh, take a Roth because tax rates will be higher in the future. Everybody's been wrong. I've been against Roth since they came out. I think it's a horrible decision. Do not bet on tax rates going up, going down. Stay away from a Roth, in my opinion. Go with a conventional IRA. Take the break now. Don't give the. Why would you pay tax in advance? I mean, really?
That's true.
It is one of the worst decisions that you can make, in my humble opinion. Okay, so
Because I was telling people to get them, so now they hear total opposite. But you're correct in paying tax now when you don't know. But do you think that the tax?
Why would I give the government my tax money? Especially, think about all the people who could have used that money, who gave the government their tax money.
No, I think that, but don't you think it's going to go up later, though? Don't you think we're going to head into a higher tax base?
Who knows, Laurel, and who knows
Maybe.
what? But here's the thing, too. You could potentially, even though we've had lower tax rates, even if you had higher tax rates, I believe they'd be on the upper echelon of income earners, and with people waiting to retire, you potentially could be in an upper income range while you're working, but as you approach retirement, as you slow things down, you could be in a lower tax bracket at that point as well. So there's so much to contemplate here. The sure thing is take the money in hand rather than give it to the IRS. I mean, why give the money to the IRS and then 30 years later think that maybe it might be better? Take your money today. It's your money. And 30 years later, chances are you'll do just fine with that. Don't worry about what tax rates are. Keep your money. Don't give it to the IRS.
I love it. So we're going to have lots of controversy on that one in our community. It'll be perfect. But you know what I love about it? Monday we had Harry Dent, right? And then yesterday we had Kelly Korsick, who has an algorithmic trader out of Stanford and managed Deutsche Bank. And then you today. What I love about our community conversations is who's right. I said at some point, right? So how would you answer that? Who's right? Because there is a variance in the advice, in this speculation and the input. I mean, obviously you're sitting on those,
I won't say who's right, but I will tell you who's been wrong. Who has been wrong for the last 20 years is every single person who took a Roth IRA has been wrong.
All right.
That's just factual. That's not opinion. You can't argue it because it's a statement of fact. So everybody for the last 20 years who said to their customer, take a Roth IRA, that was the wrong decision for the customer. So we don't know what will happen in the future. I could be wrong in the future, but I've been right for the last 20 years. And so has everybody who's been against Roth IRAs.
No, so I totally get the interest on the way in, but I'm just talking in general, like, there's some prediction that the tax rate will come up to help recover the economy, and there'll be hyperinflation, and what happens to the dollar. So
how are you going to increase tax rates right now in this environment? How can you possibly even imagine tax rates increasing for a very long time as we try and recover? That would crush and squash the economic recovery. It's impossible. How could even Democrats would be hard pressed to try to come up with a tax hike of any sort in this environment? That would be ludicrous. That would be, remember, that's how the Great Depression, that's how the Great Recession in the 1920s became the Great Recession, as they raised tax rates. So I think and hope that we've learned from that. You can't do that as you're trying to recover. That's
good. What do you think's the you said like the virus was in what, week or 2 weeks? Do you think we're going to head back to work and then will be a shutdown? Do you think it's really determining on the vaccine? As people are making these decisions and considering all that we're talking about, how are you going to give some lay of the land going forward to folks as they're making some of these decisions? Such a great question. So here's what I'm hearing, Laurel. So and what I think just kind of makes sense is that as we potentially get a therapeutic response, hopefully soon, and as we get seasonality to improve things, we will start to get back to work slowly, but people will still remain hesitant to gather in large groups and, give the normal embraces that you do when you see a friend. I think it'll be just a different way of life until we get a vaccine. Once we get a vaccine, things will start to really feel much more normal. And as the early reports were, well, maybe sometime in 2021, but now we're hearing a lot of optimistic talk that there is hope for a vaccine to be
able to be administered maybe, just maybe by the end of this year. So look, we pray that's the optimistic approach. We hope. And then do we think that everybody will get a vaccine? I think that unlike the flu vaccine, which, you know, I believe that more people should get it. You have 330 million people, only 110 million doses of the flu vaccine, which is why you still have flu and why you still have people dying from it. Now, listen, people have personal preferences and they feel like, I don't want to get that vaccine. I don't want to get a shot. But I think with COVID, I think people's eyes have been opened that these are things that we should really take seriously. And, you know, the medical community wants everybody vaccinated because that would eradicate this thing, similar to things like measles and polio. So I think you can get rid of this thing to a very high degree simply with vaccination.
So Kent also has questions. So doesn't it take them 2 years to do some double-blind studies on those vaccinations? How will that get handled?
Yeah, I think that you're right, that was what was first anticipated. But what we're hearing from the medical community now is that because private industry is really pushing for this and everybody knows how serious this is, everything's on an accelerated pace. And, you know, remember Moore's Law, right? So Moore's Law says that when you take a look at how long it took to do something, you know, Moore's Law is about doubling the amount of semiconductors on a chip with the ability to withstand the heat from it, doubling every 2 years. That's Moore's Law. Well, to some extent, that's just what we notice in everything we're doing. Time is compressing. So what used to take this long is taking this long. I think we can all relate to that in the way that things are changing so rapidly. So there is hope and there is reason to believe that with so much emphasis put on this, that the procedure will be shortened to bring something to market that can be safe and effective to really help us to get back to normal, because our economy is definitely needed.
I know, right? How do we do adequate CV-19 testing to ID all the bad people in quotes? Then it's a typo, something on the delays or us on the delays. Not sure what I did.
You know, that's so interesting. Whether you have something on your phone with your picture that says that you've been, you know, you're clean, or that you've been immunized, or whatever it is, or you built up antibodies. There could very well be an ID of you on your phone that as we greet each other, hey, you know, it's okay to give me a kiss. Here you go. You know, so this is what, you know, show me your phone first before I hug you. Before I shake your hand, let me see. It might come down to something like that until we get vaccines, or even for a period of time. But it would not surprise me because we do everything on our phone. Either that or some sort of a badging system. But you bring up something that is right now being discussed in the medical community. I spoke to people at the Cleveland Clinic about this just 2 days ago. So it's interesting you bring it up.
Of really IDing people, right?
Exactly.
All right. So we mentioned vaccines. Do we see a market push for everyone to get vaccinated? We talked about that. Crisis and stuff. Okay, we already talked about that. Over-the-counter medications, is there anything to do for prevention right now that you're aware of?
The therapeutic responses that are out there, there's a lot, but over the counter, there really isn't anything other than one of the things that's been talked about was bovine colostrum helps to boost your immunity. Take vitamin C, you know, maybe take a little extra vitamin C if you can. These are things that just have people say boost your immunity. So that's good. And, you know, it's so interesting that we're talking so much about this because it has so much to do. It's so interconnected with everything in business, you know, because it's never before been like this, where the business community, at least in our experience, where the business community and outcome and projections to put a stake in the ground and model around it, it really depends on how the medical response is, right? So it's so crazy. So we're all trying to get as much information as we can to be able to handicap the business side by understanding the medical side.
That's different. So do more millennials get their vaccinations or baby boomers? They ask because baby boomers who have come into contact, this is Clinton who's asking this question, would rather choose natural remedies over getting any of the medications or vaccines.
You know, that's going to be, again, you got to go back to your doctor and ask those personal questions depending on your personal situations, because, you know, there's a lot of talk about people who have some pre-existing conditions, maybe body mass index and blood sugar levels, that they need to really talk to their physician before they do anything about what would be best approach for them.
Let's get back to money. So would you pay off your house if you had a whole bunch of debt equity at these low rates? Wouldn't it be better to put the equity work? So Kat, we talked about that. And again, knowing who you are, super, super smart financial woman. Again, I think it's a lot like, do you know what you're doing? mean, for some of you, it's the only, like we said, Barry, it's the only money that some of you have is the equity in your home. And you take it and go, I'm going to say gambling, because to me, without any education and knowledge and guidance, you're gambling. And so to gamble in this economy, again, I think it's dangerous as hell.
Yeah, I think that you're right. You know, there comes a point in time when you say that equity in my home might be better served if I were doing something else with it. So one of the easy ones that you can do is you can quantify that arbitrage by saying, can I effectively pay off debt by using the equity in my home? And that usually turns out to be a pretty good decision to make. Now, some people say, well, people will charge up their debt again, but you know, try and be smarter about it, okay? And just because they paid off their debt or they don't pay off their debt doesn't mean they couldn't charge more anyway, right? Yeah. People's inclination is, I bet you by the time everybody who's listening to this goes home, there's going to be some credit card offers in the mail. So there's no shortage of people pushing debt on you. Hopefully you have the discipline, but use the smart strategy. So if you want to use equity in your home to pay off debt, that's usually a good thing. The other things that you may want to look at is if you have a longer time horizon, equities tend to do well with a longer time horizon. Now, if you asked me this question in January, what I would have said that based on the price to earnings ratio of the S&P 500, and if you look at history, there are compromised returns going forward whenever you buy a 10-year period of, you know, whenever you look 10 years ahead, when you buy stocks with higher price to earnings ratios, the next 10 years tend to be compromised. But since those valuations have come down, if you have a long time horizon, you probably can do well by doing that. But again, consult somebody that you trust, but now would be a better time than when the S&P was at 33.93 back on February 19th.
Yep. So what options will landlords have with their mortgages when tenants start not making their payments? So as tenants, you know, not pay, what we've done too, Barry, just on a past broadcast, is we taught people both sides. Landlords, get in front of it, negotiate with your tenants, and tenants go to let me go. Like, figure out your numbers sooner than later than let this just kind of happen to you. Just from a communication and a, you know, get a handle on your numbers. But what from the banking side and mortgage side, what's going to happen?
Well, you know, this is a tough time for that landlord because they're being squeezed on both ends. They're not getting payments and they've got to find a way to seek relief. So this is very, very tricky and very difficult. And I'm sure the landlords out there are going to do the best that they can to try and get workarounds with those people that they're hopefully trying to help by being kind and considerate to and sympathetic towards. With, you know, what can you pay? You know, how can we do this? What is our plan to work this out in the future? So what we all have to pray for is, that's why the medical side of this is so important, that this is not prolonged for a very, very, very difficult period of time, and that we can come out of this and start to see some improvement in May where people go back to work and start paying their bills. And then at least you've mitigated the loss to a smaller period of time, hopefully a more manageable one. But there are, depending on the type of business, you know, this PPP, this payroll protection plan for small businesses, and sometimes landlords tend to be small business owners. You can tap into that. Landlords can ask for forbearance on the loans that they have on the mortgage that they're paying. So there are ways that we can try to hopefully mitigate this for them, but no doubt about it, Laura, this is a tough situation. It's such an awful situation. Your heart just goes out to people, you know, because these are real struggles that people are looking at. And Laura, you know, I just wanted to be cognizant of the time on this. And so if there's like one more question or something that we could take.
One more question. So I want to jump to the serial entrepreneur in yourself. So business owners are, you know, making a lot of really, I'd say, you know, discriminating decisions around payroll and cutting and going home and forcing themselves to go home. Businesses, my advice to them is collaborate. Like, if you need some capital, collaborate with others. What are you saying to a small business owner around, like, just how to hold on? And even if they've hold on, there's already some systemic issues with them having to all go home and, you know, put their people, lay them off. And what do you say to small business owners right now?
Boy, it is so hard because everyone has got such an individual situation, but clearly take advantage of the PPP programs that's out there. Okay, that can help you, can maybe bridge the gap for you. But there are so many businesses like restaurant owners that will have a difficult time because people might not want to congregate as much until there is a vaccine. And it's not as easy to flip a switch and turn those businesses back on and ramp them on. So there are clearly challenges out there. What I would try to do during this very trying and difficult time is try and seek the advice of as many people as you can to try and streamline things within your business, to try and bring back your business in ways that will allow you to be more profitable, per transaction, let's just say, if there's less transactions. This is a Herculean effort, and it's so individual. I don't want to appear to be at all insensitive to the needs of those by pretending that I understand their situation better than they do. But all I could say in this particular case is that there are some government programs you could use, and honest to God, I pray for you, and I really hope that you find the wisdom and the strength to get through this for yourself and for your family, because I know it's not easy.
Yeah. Barry, thank you. Appreciate you so much. Look forward to what's coming. You have a book
Laurel, you're such a pleasure, and you do such a great job, and you help so many people, Laurel. What an honor to be with you here. I really appreciate that.
Thank you. I appreciate you, and look forward to being a big part of your book launch in the fall. So stay tuned.
I can't wait for Money in the Streets to be released. Laurel,
Awesome.
that's an old story. People who came to the United States as immigrants, and my parents were immigrants, they were told stories about America, that it's such a rich country that all you've got to do is bend down and pick up the money in the streets, because the streets are lined with money, right? And when I was a very poor kid, we were very, very poor, and my mom worked in a sweatshop, and my dad worked at a hot dog stand, and he passed away when I was a young kid. And my mom would say to me, she said, we were told that America was such a rich country that there were money in the streets. All you had to do is pick it up. And she would laugh, but it was almost sad. But as I understood that all we need to do is see opportunities, because they're all around us, even in times like this, even more so. Yeah. And then just kind of take those opportunities and do good with them and help others, that this truly is money in the streets. And I told her one day before she passed, I said, Mom, you were right. There really is money in the streets. We just got to look for that opportunity, pick it up, and do good with it.
Absolutely.
I wish that for everyone on this call.
Thank you. Appreciate your time, Barry.
Thanks, Laurel. Bye-bye.
Thank you. All right. So how about that? Phenomenal, Barry Habib. And we will be bringing him back. So the book launch, A New Kindred Spirit, I'll be working with him, talking to him about his book launch. We'll be bringing it to you on a pre-launch. Super excited, and we'll be giving some updates. And as you hear, there are some, counter conversations about Roths, right? So that's, again, decisions. What do I love about the series that we've been doing? And I'm going to answer some of the questions that I knew that we could answer internally, is if there has never been a time, like I have been passionate about teaching money since I learned about it at 17 years old. And, through all of this, 2020 for me, I just was on an interview this morning. We're going to air that just because it was really a totally different kind of an interview. 2020 was going to be my transition year. And if you would have said this was the transition of doing this and finding world leaders and world thinkers. But at the end of the day, what I love about the diversity of opinions and thought is that it's really up to you. I mean, at the end of the day, we've said that to you forever. We teach it over and over. What are your money rules? What are your money rules for you and your family? What are your lending rules? Some of the questions I'm just going to go into, do you take a loan from your 401k WS? So I don't know. Do you? And again, I think a lot of this goes back to your education. So those of you who have opportunities, and those of you in the big table, we have to get in massive communication. I mean, John's out there sitting on a great opportunity. Rich, who those of you on laser calls heard those opportunities. There are so many amazing opportunities for those of you who are paying attention. And I cannot wait to do Money in the Streets, because I think a lot of you, knew before I even knew he was going to do the book. I said, there's money everywhere. Like when we teach the marketplace, I said, there's money everywhere. Just bend over and pick it up. So I'm going to love supporting him and endorsing and being part of his book launch, because it's true. The more you know, the less fearful all this is. I mean, some of your questions are because they're from a really uneducated place. And I'm not saying that to be rude or condescending. It's just read, learn, study, make decisions. There's kind of two seats you sit in. I know Laura's out there, and Laura's going to be talking to a lot of our folks who still haven't returned our reach out to you. If you comment or on this, even whether you're in the big table, we're 100K, or you're just like watching because you're brand new, we're offering private conversations for you to talk about your situation. And it might not be, the person you're talking to, but I can tell you, we have credit, we have tax, we have folks who can do that Roth and 401k analysis for you. The piece that I love about the Roth is everything that grows inside is tax-free, tax-deferred. That's the one piece that is very different about that growth trajectory, and putting crypto inside of there. And again, if you don't know anything about it, you don't take the crumbs from Harry on Monday and Kelly and Randy yesterday and Barry today and me today and try to put your own plan together. right? You want to get around a lot of people and say, am I doing the right things? And ask the questions. I don't know if you're doing the right things. I don't know what your goals are. Every one of you on this call, your goals are different for you and your family, right? I have some of the highest net worth clients who said I would never leverage my house. I pay it off, and there's certain pieces that I don't ever touch. Some people say I would never borrow against my 401k. Some of you, you can go and get $50,000 as long against your 401k, but you're going to have to pay it back, so you don't gamble on a risky proposition. Some of you are saying, like, and this is when I say some, because I'm hearing we have so much chat going on now, and your questions are, well, I'm going to go with my friend. I would say, is your friend a millionaire? Does your friend do any of these deals? That includes, is your accountant a millionaire? Does your accountant do any of these things? Is your lawyer one of those folks? Like, this is that time where we are at home, or we're in, small groups, and we are focused on what is our next step? How are you going to move through this? So this isn't a conversation I think about today. If we're released, say by April 30th of May to go back, are you, and how are you going back? I know airlines, we talked to a lot of pilots, they're not just going to flip the switch and all the way, planes are back in the air. Hotels have to bring people back to work. Casinos have to bring people back to work. Restaurants have to bring people back to work. And in the meantime, some of those people did go out and get other jobs. Some, which I'm hoping for a lot of you, are learning to be better entrepreneurs. And instead of going back as an employee, you're going to go back with your own company. And, Scott and Weldon, Warren, some of the guys who are really experts in that say, why aren't you talking more about entities? And actually, it's interesting that a lot of you have asked that question. Because today, if you had money for an entity or a trust and you needed one, you get a trust done, and you get that done now. And anybody who's in, I'm gonna say partnership or working with me, I'm pushing, like, get your trust done, get your durable powers of attorneys done. If anything happens because this is a health crisis, you're behind. Like, you got to get these things in order. So this is the time, I think, for our community, which is why we are standing and doing this every day. Our teams haven't had a break. Clients that we haven't heard from in a decade are coming back out saying, oh, you know what, I do need help. And we have stood the test of time for decades. So regardless of, opinions like or not like, we're here. I have a lot of teams that can help you assess what your situations are. And at the end of the day, I'm not a financial planner. I can't tell you what to do. I'm not a CPA. I can't tell you what to do, and I'm not a lawyer. But I'll tell you, we have amazing groups of people who can help you with those situations and talk. At the end of the day, I think for a lot of you, where your money rules need to be is, don't forget your common sense. Does it make sense to do some of the things that you're doing? Right? Does it make some of those sense? Like Ken says, all the money grows tax-free. Is that correct? Inside your Roth, yes. And Ken, given what I've known that you've been up to and what I'm up to, you know how to make those moves work. For some people who thought that we're just going to, put their money to work only for the tax exit, I would agree with Barry. That's not the reason to have done it. Landlords, we've talked about that. Claire wants to know, when we mention equity markets, is that using equity in your home, other investment methods? That's also buying, businesses. It's buying stocks, very specific stocks. So equities is a large, broader umbrella term. Fix and flips, what a great way to make money. I mean, Walt and I know you, Doreen, are doing that. What's interesting about a lot of the trades and the builders and developers and construction, I'm seeing fix and flip, like, people are still going. I mean, if there's nobody in the house, I'm seeing people still go out and working on projects and doing a lot of that. So I think it's a great strategy if you know what you're doing. And again, you guys are with, I know, one team in Ohio and doing a really great job. That, fix and flip right now, it's slow. I mean, depending on how fast you can, get your money out, because then you can also build, some cash. The biggest thing that I am, really pushing a lot of you and just helping you is collaborate. I mean, we're a community for a reason. Let's collaborate. Let's have conversations. Let's get creative. If something's really happening to you, don't put your head in the sand and say, oh my gosh, I can't do it. Like, ask other people how it can be done. There's a lot of creativity in this community that will help you. So again, Ken, I don't know that you call in, right? You're a part of our community, call in. So the Roth 401k, you can self-direct. You can use that money, not with your own fix and flip, but that's where you collaborate with other partners. It cannot be in the lineage of your own Social Security number. So you can't pull your 401k and do something with your husband or children, but you could do it. I know people on this call that are on the big table. You have to start matchmaking a little bit more in what works for you guys. So I I think those are the questions. Team out there, if there's anything else. Right now, I just want to urge you, have a conversation with our team. Those of you that are already clients, you're in our community, make sure you're really connecting. Thomas, if you're out there, put up our affiliate link. Let's talk a little bit about what's happening next week. So we have, for the first time, super excited. One sec, I've got to go live on this little structure here one more time. So Thomas, if you want to put up a link, here's what we've decided to do. Many of you we've met because I was on stages somewhere, and I met through another community affiliate, and really important work that I believe we do teaching you off Wall Street. So inside of Off Wall Street, we teach how to make money, right? It's the infinity loop, right? It's all the components of how to be a millionaire. It's how to make it, how do you keep it, how do you get funding, how do you use your IRAs, how do you get incorporated? And this isn't just Laurel's advice. These are a whole group of people for now decades who are, just showing you that this is a lifestyle, not a program. And I think for a lot of you, that switch has got to go on, that this is how wealthy people live. This is how millionaires live. We act, think, and do what wealthy people do. I emulated a lot of people. I've studied wealthy families. That's how I kind of came up with all of this. I had it validated by very, very extraordinary economists and world leaders say, yep, this is how you do it, right? You make money, you keep it, you invest it, you do it with a team, you're in a constant collaboration. So that Off Wall Street event is normally $750, $357. It's, people paid for it and they're waiting. Next week, we're supposed to be in Las Vegas. So here's what we decided to do. You will always have the opportunity to use your ticket. We'll probably give you an unlimited amount of times to use it as we come back alive and come back together. When we can come back out, we are coming back out, just so you know. So we've all heard that announcement. Even if it's a small group and we have to live stream to the rest of you who either can't get there on airplanes, because it's going to take a while. Like, we are coming back out. Our tour in Boise, yes, we're not doing it. There's no way to get enough people there. I'm trying to get there myself. My flight's been canceled already, several times. So, and that was a May 1, 2, 3. So yes, it's being postponed. But all of it, like, we still may go up and just still like take a whole bunch of video and bring it to you live. So next week we're going live. If our date calendar was still up and it's still up, it's still going live. We're just going to come this way. So next week we are going to do Off Wall Street, just like we do in a live event. We're going to Wednesday night put the panelists on, put all our experts on. And then through the next couple of days, you'll have conversations with each expert. I'll be continuing to put your plan and sequence together. So I'll be giving you some planning tools, and we're putting the sequence together. So if you've already bought an Off Wall Street ticket along our past journey, a lot of you in Toronto have, Houston, Dallas, wherever I spoke, a lot of Orange County, you now have an opportunity to join us next week. So you need to, Thomas, if you want to put up the link. And I think what's different is there's, if you already have a ticket, I don't know if we actually have a 0, where they can, I think on that link we need to put, I already have a ticket, and click, and so you won't be billed anything. But for all of you that are out there that wanted this experience, you will be taught to make money. We're going to have a marketplace. You do need to be ready to take money. We are having a marketplace. It's only $97 for everyone who's never been with us before. And we'll have a marketplace. You're going to get expertise from our 401k team, our entity team, a trust team, our credit team. So it's almost like a lot of these broadcasts are going to be very condensed into I'm going to call it a, Wednesday night, Thursday, and a Friday. So we'll be posting very clearly the hours today by end of day. I put them up yesterday. I can just verbally, let you know. Registration will start at 4:30 for the non-technical, I'm calling it, because the last thing we want is go live at 5 o'clock and a bunch of you are saying, I don't know how to get around. So you'll have a little tutorial on how to get around and how to get in your room, because there'll be a main room and then you'll be divided into rooms depending on where you are. So we'll be asking you to do things as you register. So Wednesday night we'll start at 4:30, really for the technically inclined, 5 to 7-ish. And then on Thursday will be 10 to 12, 2 to 4, and then 5:30 to 7-ish will be a marketplace where you literally are going to be making money. You'll be pitching, you're going to be making sales, you're going to be getting offers. So you need to have PayPal or credit card, swipe, however you're going to take your money, you're going to be able to take it. And then on Friday, 10 to 12, we'll go back for live content and I'll do a planning session to kind of conclude it. But those of you who behave and do everything we're going to ask you to do, so you actually cooperate and be involved, you're going to get a bonus session on Friday afternoon of a marketplace where we want you to make a lot of money. So we're closing our registration doors to new people at 100 people. So we are north of, I think, 30. Our team is out there. So call Muriel if you already have a ticket, and make sure that you get into what we call the committed bucket, which you are coming for sure. And please, these are like limited seats. So make sure that you know, if you've had a ticket, that you actually show up and you use this and don't take somebody else's seat that really needs to be here. So it's only $97 if you've never done anything with us. Those of you in the big table, obviously, this comes along with it. And those of you who've already had a ticket, this doesn't replace the use of your ticket live when we come live. So we will be putting more information out between now and next Wednesday night. We're going to have, in 1 week, a world-class event. Cannot wait to calculate the amount of money, the amount of just cash that this group's going to have available. And we're going to be doing it again in May. I doubt we will be back out live in Orange County. A small group may head over there if we are all live and free to do that. If not, we will just go back out again. So if we fill up, we will have to roll over into the May dates, which is the 13th, 14th, 15th. So we will, again, make sure our calendars are up to date. The timing of the structure is up to date, so you know you can book other things around it. But really immerse yourself. This is a time for us to teach you our magic. I call it our marketplace technology, how we can help you make money. And now, in the most challenging environment, in your lifetime. So looking forward to it. There's the information on the screen. We appreciate you being out. And again, just so honored that we were able to have Barry Habib on, and look forward to more. So stay tuned, stay in touch, be well, and be safe. Take care.